please give it up for Bobby.
Make myself home here. Take your shoes off before you go into your house, right? Good evening. Good evening. So, to echo the sentiment of a previous storyteller, home is something that's a visceral feeling that comes along with being present, being in a moment that you're really connected to. So, connection is what home is to me. And so these three stories are very short and brief, but they're all relating to connection to moment and present time. So my first story, I was my first solo bike tour. I had aimed to go from from Washington D.C. to Arizona, and I never made it to Arizona, but that's okay. It's another story. Anyhow, under the influence of some psychedelic mushrooms, decided it would be a good idea to take off in the middle of the night from Washington, D.C., Georgetown, on my bicycle with 70 pounds of gear loaded onto this trailer. And so I took off in the middle of the night down the C&O Canal, and I'm heading down, and I had this deep, visceral feeling of like overwhelming joy, of overwhelming freedom. And I just started to cry where I was, and I was on my bike and I'm riding and I'm crying. I'm like, this is amazing. And I was just so overwhelmed. And then out of the woods comes this deer just right across my path and into the canal. And I crash, and all my stuff goes all over the place, and I'm just like frazzled, and the deer is splashing around the canal. And I was just like, oh my God. And so that's end of the story one. So, story number two, also on a bicycle tour in Italy. I started the day with a climb, and I was in central Italy, and I was going up and up and up. I climbed for probably about 2.5 hours. It was a pretty brutal morning. And so anyhow, I crested this hill, and I started on my descent, I came to this barricade of about 100 sheep that were tended by a couple small boys and what I assumed to be their grandfather. So anyhow, I stopped, and I didn't really know what to do, and they collectively, with their energy, somehow parted this sea of sheep for me. And I was just like, grazie mille, thanks a million. And I rode on through, and it was great. And again, I had this visceral feeling just inside where it just choked me up, and I came to tears where I was, and I cried. It was great. End of story number two. Story number three. Story number three. Recently at the Mafka Common Ground Fair, I was at a workshop for work songs, which I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with. Work songs are basically where it's if you can think of it like a Texas prison song where you work and you build up the spirit and the joy of everyone who's doing physical labor. And so we're doing this workshop, and there's 25, 30 people, and there's this gentleman who's chopping away at this pretty sizable log with a broad axe and turning it into a beam, essentially. And so we're all singing in unison, and we have like these beautiful harmonies, these beautiful melodies, and it was just like this deep feeling, like it choked me up, and it brought tears to my eyes because I felt at home. And it just, I don't know what it was, and I don't know what it is in any of these experiences, but these feelings that connect me to time and to place. It's really what home is, and home doesn't really have a physical address. It doesn't have. It's not where your dog sleeps, or where your truck is parked, or where your seeds are planted in the ground. It's this connection to time and to place, and to being present. And so I'm still trying to find this thing that I call home. But oddly enough, I have home tattooed on my knuckles here. I don't know if anybody can see that, but it's kind of an ironic thing because I'm still searching for this grass that is greener on the other side. But here I am, home again, and thank you. So.